Welcome, everyone, to Awaken the Possibilities. I'm your host, Terry Wildemann, and it is a joy to be here with you today because I have a guest that a lot of us can use. One of the things about being in our homes for as long as we've been is that we get to notice the clutter. Oh my gosh. It's like, okay, I can do better at this. However, some of us need help, some of us more help than others. And I know that when your house is cluttered, that is a signal to me that your life is cluttered. Today, I have an expert that can help us with all of that. Mel Robertson is a declutter expert coach and the founder of Decluttering Spaces. She helps her clients get free from clutter, physical, mental, and emotional, so that they can make space for the magic to happen and experience abundance and happiness in every area of their lives. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Welcome, welcome, Mel. And today's topic is going to be Dare to Thrive. And we're going to be cleaning out clutter. So,
Oh,
Mel, how did you get into this?
Terry, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm honored to be here with you, and I love talking about this. So the short condensed version, how I really got into doing what I do is that I got to a point in my life where I received a $50,000 check in the mail, and I was able to take 6 months off to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And at that point in my life, I was able to create order out of chaos. I loved creating order out of chaos. And I had a background in energy healing, Reiki and Theta, but I didn't want to sit in a room with someone all day long and do sessions. And
Mhm.
at that point, I watched that show Hoarders for the first time, and I became absolutely horrified because all of that stuff that's been accumulated around them, that they've accumulated for years, is like their Great Wall of China. And this show comes in and removes everything in a 4-day period and then films the show in the process. And then they leave. And then that person has been completely exposed. All of their defenses have been removed. And then you leave. And then the clutter comes back worse than it
Exactly.
was before.
Because the emotional stuff hasn't been healed that created the clutter.
It just causes more trauma by
Yeah.
removing it all and leaving them exposed and raw, and they're just out there like, and it just totally freaks them out, and it gets worse. So that made me want to start a company that actually helped people get to the root of the clutter so that it didn't get that way in the first place, and that it doesn't keep coming back, because it's our birthright to be happy and abundant in every area of our lives. And clutter is anything that gets in the way of that, whether it be the physical stuff in our environment or the mental stuff, the limiting beliefs, the repressed emotions, resentments, fears, all of that stuff. And so it made me want to create a company that could really help people access their birthright of being happy and abundant in every area of their life.
How cool is that? So tell me, how do you work with people?
I work with people in a couple ways. There's a lot of people that really just want to deal with the physical clutter, and they don't want anything else, and they want a solution. They want you to help them get their office organized. They want you to help them with the pantry or the closet, and you can kind of just feed them little pieces and hope that someday they come along. But the real work happens when you actually start coaching with me, and we do the work on the inside, because I have to teach you how to become present with your life, because all of the clutter accumulates because we avoid it, we resist it, and we deny it. Or we're hanging on to stuff because it feels really good. And when we're avoiding and hanging on, we can't allow what simply is to be. And so the one thing that I teach my clients, and I tell them this, I give them the keys to the kingdom in our first session. And if you just put this piece in practice, you'll be firing me shortly. All you need to do is learn to show up and bring your presence to your life. And when you can just sit with yourself and be present without judging yourself, without trying to change anything, and just witness yourself exactly as you are, you begin to make space inside of yourself. Now, the great thing about that is there's a principle in operation in the universe that states, as above, so below, as within, so without. It's the principle of correspondence. And so the outside is just a mirror of the inside. If you try to change the outside first, it's really hard. It's like trying to get molasses to run up a hill in the middle of January, right?
I've never heard that description before.
And so when you do it from the outside in, it's just, you got to drag yourself. It's so hard. But when you start making the space on the inside, it starts to happen naturally. And what changes is that because you make space inside, you have to have space on the outside too. It has to match. There's a law in place. So once you make the space, you start wanting to make space outside. And the reason how I figured this out is I was actually a really cluttered, messy kid growing up. You could not walk in my room. There were 2 paths on my floor, and I was the only one who knew where they were. They weren't existent to anybody else. I was super attached to stuff like office supplies, containers, books, CDs, and people. I had severe attachments to people and things and stuff like that. But I also experienced a lot of trauma and loss early in childhood. And by the age of 15, I experienced what I consider to be the dark night of my soul, which for me was losing my older brother to suicide.
That's tough.
Being the one to discover his body, and in the same moment, in his suicide note, inheriting all of his belongings. So at 15 years old, after finding him in his home, I had to then go back into that home and go through everything and figure out what I was going to keep and what other people could have. So as you could imagine, at 15 years old, my life pretty much started to spiral into a black hole, and I planned on killing myself. I didn't want to be here anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I also got kicked out of high school for being a danger to myself and others. Now, mind you, a little 100-pound, like sophomore in high school, little tiny thing like me, being considered a danger to myself and others and being kicked out of high school. And I wasn't allowed to return until I received intensive therapy. What that looked like was I spent the next 1.5 years of my life living in a residential treatment center for adolescents. Mm-hmm. But unbeknownst to me, that is where my life would drastically change. Because while I was living there, I was introduced to yoga and mindfulness.
Nice.
And what yoga and mindfulness taught me in a nutshell was how to come home and be present in my body for all that inner clutter, repressed emotions, resentments, fears, limiting beliefs, all of that stuff that had been accumulating. And as a result, what started to happen was I got organized from the inside out. I started to go through my stuff, and I had to start going through it, but it was gradual. It wasn't overnight. I just went through everything and let it go. I would go through it and let go of some stuff, go through it and let go of some stuff. And gradually over a period of about 12 years, I went from being this really cluttered, messy kid to someone who creates order out of chaos and has to have clean, clear space. Like I can have a little mess and a little clutter, but it has to get cleaned up. Like I can only get a little bit, but it happened from the inside out. And that's how I know this works.
What a phenomenal story. And what a testament to entrepreneurship that you found a solution that started with you first. And that I'm finding that that's really what is happening with many of the entrepreneurs that I interview here on the show, is that it does start from the inside out. We end up doing that which we need to learn for ourselves.
They say your mess is your message, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Your mess is your message.
And mine was a real mess. My mom just shut the door. She couldn't.
No, that is absolutely brilliant. That is really, really cool. So I'm curious, what is the time frame between when you found yourself and you started your business?
So I was about 18 when I got out of that residential treatment facility, and it wasn't, gosh, I didn't start my business until 2014. So I got out in 95 to 2014. How many years is that?
Okay, whatever.
Right. But you know, it's funny because you start doing all this, and I got to this place where I was really uncluttered, but I also was in a place where I still struggled with codependence, and I got into a relationship where I basically just shut my light off for someone else, in order to not lose that person because my light was too bright for them. And for, from 2007 till about 2013, I pretty much just stayed like I just shut my light off. And I finally got to a point where I wanted to take my life again. I was like, I'm miserable. Like, I'm just tapped out. I'm emotionally drained. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm not even connected to source anymore. And I had remembered everything that I ever learned, that it's our birthright to be happy and abundant in every area of our life. And I got to this point where I had to make a decision. I'm either going to end my life right now and be done with this, or I'm going to do whatever it takes to get access to that and find out how to experience that. So I made the commitment to myself that I was going to make my happiness my number one priority, because she was my number one priority for the longest time. And so I had to put myself first. And when I made that decision, I started 2 practices in my life, because I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't reading anything spiritual anymore because she didn't want to hear about it. I wasn't, praying, connecting, meditating, doing any of that. So I started with just 5 minutes a day, sitting in my car before I went into work, just doing this practice that I call allowing the now, just showing up and meeting myself right where I am without any judgment and letting whatever is simply be. And I became what I call a happiness seeking missile. So
I love it.
a heat-seeking missile locks onto a heat signature and doesn't let go until it makes impact, right? In the
You're a
military.
happiness-seeking missile.
So a happiness-seeking missile does the same thing. Everywhere I went, I made it my intention to look for something that made me feel good or brought me joy, because it was my default to find what I didn't like or what was negative. So I was always focused on the negative. So I wanted to change the default from being negative to positive.
Positive, right?
Now,
Very good.
you just raise your vibration.
Now, some of the listeners to Awaken the Possibilities may not understand what you mean when you say you diminish your light. Can you share a little bit more and explain to the Awaken the Possibilities audience? And I think most of them do get it and understand. But for new listeners, they may not get what you're talking about when you say your light was diminished.
Yeah. So I'm a very vibrant, bright person, very connected to source. My relationship with God is the most important relationship in my life. And I'm very, for a lot of people, I'm considered out there spiritually in a lot of things that I would talk about: ascension, not having to experience physical death, entities being channeled and reading that kind of stuff. And I was always talking about, I'm someone who doesn't like to read fiction. I don't like to fill my head with anything that's not true or uplifting. And so I was always reading spiritual books, and she would always get pissed that I wouldn't read anything else. And I was always just talking about spiritual stuff because that's just my focus. That was my thing. And I didn't want to lose her because I was codependent and I had separation anxiety from like losing my brother and stuff.
Sure.
That I didn't want to lose her. So I just shut my light down to be what she wanted me to be. And then I just, over time, I got more depressed. I got miserable. And then I wanted to take my life because I just kept dimming my light for her.
Got it. And that's a big deal. So I want to just summarize here. Shutting down someone's light is being what other people want you to be, not who you actually are. And when we can't be who we actually are, all the symptoms that you're talking about are what evolve from that. And I can appreciate what you're talking about. I'm going to share a very quick story. I owned a leadership center from 2001 to 2009. And I had various people working at the center, and it was really it was my center. I put my heart, it was my second home. I put my, everything I had into it. And I will never forget that one of the practitioners came to me and said, my client is coming and she can't handle your energy. I need to ask you to leave. And that was from my own center. And I walked into my office shaking. And unfortunately, as strong as I am, I allowed that to affect me for many years. And I dimmed my light, right? Because I do have big energy. I have always had big energy. And what I realized was it constricted my voice, and I couldn't really be who I wanted to be. And the bottom line was that counselor should have held her client accountable to that. I, in retrospect, as a coach, I was so stunned. it would have been wise for me to have said, that's your client's problem and that's your problem. This is my center. Uh, but at that moment in time, I was so thrown by it. I didn't do that and allowed it. And I'm going to say I allowed it to affect me for a very long time. So I appreciate everything that you're talking about in dimming your light. And it can be, and we as parents and as teachers, it really is important for us. And I don't want to say the word need, because need is lack. When you say, I need this, I need, when we use that word need, it's lack. But when we say, when we watch our words and elevate people instead of diminish them. I mean, can you imagine telling somebody, you've got to leave because this person is intimidated by you, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So, gosh, do I understand exactly what it is that you're talking about? And as parents, we need to be very cautious of the words that we use, the phrases that we use, and what we say that diminishes our children, our spouses, and the people who walk our path. So, thank you for sharing that message. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, because that's one I don't think I've shared ever on Awaken the Possibilities.
Oh, wow.
So that's
I'm
really
honored.
That's really, really cool. So I know that you have a really big event coming up. Can you share, please, with the Awaken the Possibilities audience, what this event is all about and the special people that you're going to have involved with this event?
Yes, I am super excited. I have a huge online show coming out July 13th called Dare to Thrive: How to Let Go, Get Unstuck, Reconnect to Source, and of course, experience happiness and abundance in every area of your life. So it's all about thriving. It's all about getting rid of everything that's in the way of you living the life that you came here to live, whether that's being your own boss, whatever it is for you that you came here to do. It's helping you clear anything that's out of that. Right now, I have 27 amazing experts coming on the show, and I'm sure there's more to come. You are one of them, of course, Judy Glova, Marcy Newman, Christopher Timms. There's just so many people. The list goes on and on and on. But I'm super excited to bring this series to you. It launches July 13th. It's going to go on for over 3 weeks. One interview a day goes out into your inbox that you get to watch and just get amazing. They're short interviews designed to really give you some amazing content and an immediate action tip that you can put into place right now to get yourself unstuck from where you are and get back into the flow of abundance, so you can get that thing that's just been sitting on your chest for far too long to come to life and to come to reality for you.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I'm so blessed to be part of it. I'm really excited about it. Okay, so Mel, are there any parting words that you would like to share with the Awaken the Possibilities audience?
Absolutely. The biggest gift that you can give yourself is your presence. And that's the only requirement for getting free from clutter, because clutter only accumulates because you're unwilling. Yes, unwilling. I know it's harsh, but you're unwilling to look at it. You have to become willing to meet yourself right where you are. And the great thing about it is you don't have to know why you're hanging on to it, and you don't have to do any digging. It's like GPS. GPS doesn't need to know where the hell you've been all your life to get you where you want to go. It only needs to know where you stand right now and where you want to go, and it can get you there. So all you need to know is where you're standing right now. You don't need to know why. You don't have to beat yourself up because it's gotten this way. Just right now, okay, there's clutter that I need to deal with, and that's just it. This is it right now, and that's it. So meeting yourself right where you are without any judgment and just showing up for yourself. When you do that, you make space for the magic to happen and your life changes. I had a client who was totally just tapped out. Her schedule was completely full, doing things for everybody else, nothing for her. And she was working at a job she wasn't happy at. And at 27 years old, she was already headed for a burnout. She took a 30-day challenge of mine to do this one practice for 5 minutes a day, the allowing the now, where you just show up for yourself and do this practice. Right after the 30 days ended, her boyfriend at the time, who she thought was going to marry, left her. The relationship ended, but the very next day she got a job offer for a job that was an 80% salary increase.
Wow.
And got to take a month off before she had to start that job. So she
Right.
took a 3-week trip out of the country.
There you go. Well, how brilliant is that? Well, thank you so much, Mel, for sharing your stories, your experiences, and what Daring to Thrive is really all about, decluttering our life. And to my Awaken the Possibilities audience, I really expect that you learned a lot from today. This is a brilliant way to, over the summer, little by little, every day, begin to declutter your life. Please join us on the summit. Can you say the dates again, Mel?
Yeah, July 13th it will launch. So
There you go.
Terry will have all the information on how you can register.
I will.
If you're in her community, you'll get an email from her about it.
You will. So thank
Thank
you
you so
very
much for
much.
having me.
You are very, very welcome. And thanks so much to the Awaken the Possibilities audience. Oh, Mel, where else can people find you?
Decluttering spaces.com. You can reach me out there. That's my website. info@decluttering spaces.com is my email. And you can always call me at 619-602-3725.
Thank you so very much. And folks, you can learn more about intuitive leadership and Awaken the Possibilities at intuitiveleadership.com. All of our podcasts are on awakenthepossibilities.com, which is part of the Intuitive Leadership website. Also, you can find us on YouTube and on many radio station platforms. We are on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, just to name a few. You can also connect with me for VIP days, coaching, and training at intuitiveleadership.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it, social media. Just plug in Terry Wildemann and you will find me. So I wish you so much success in your life. Take a deep breath, shift into your heart, feel the love, and I look forward to seeing you next time. To your success.